to a new session, and in this session we are going to see how to manage the encryption settings on the AWS S3 objects and the bucket. So we already know that there are primarily three types of server-side encryption settings and one client-side setting. So primarily we have four types of encryptions that can be set on the objects, right? So now the first step is, let's go and see how the encryption settings are working. So first at the bucket level, all right? So within the bucket level, whatever settings you set on the bucket will be propagated automatically to its objects also. So at the moment you see here, the default encryption for the bucket is currently disabled. Okay, so let me leave it as it is. Let me go to the objects now, and within the objects I have two sets of objects. Okay, why I am saying two sets of objects is because each of the objects has their own versions. So when I click on the versions, AWS logo has 4 different versions, and the GCP logo has 3 different versions. Let's go and look at each of them. So this is the first one in the tree, the second one, third one, and the fourth one. So when I look here, this is the first one, right? So if you see here, the first one, that is the first one in the tree, has the server-side encryption settings to be edited. Okay, it's showing the default encryption as disabled, and you have the edit option here. Let me go into the next one and see what's there. You see here, the server-side encryption settings, we don't have the option to edit here. Likewise, the third one also does not have the option to edit, and the fourth one in the tree, the null one, the null version one, also does not have the option, right? Okay, let's first go and test this on the top one in the tree. So here the properties of this particular AWS logo.png image, let me go and change this. So the server side encryption settings, I'm going to go and edit it, and I'm going to enable it. I'm going to use the first type of the AWS managed keys for SS3, which is SSE S3. All right, I'll set this, and I'll save the changes. Okay, so now that I've saved the changes and it is successful now, let me come back here, and I should be able to see the server side encryption settings as enabled with Amazon S3 managed keys. Now let me go and check on the other versions. Alright, so now if you see here, the other version is still not getting the option to edit the setting. Alright, let me refresh this and see what is happening. So this one also does not have the option. And the last of all, this one also does not have the server-side encryption settings option. However, only the first one in the tree had the option to set the server-side encryption onto it for an object which was already uploaded to the AWS S3 bucket. Alright, so let me close all of them. So now I have a now I have a bucket which has one of the objects is having the AWS S3 managed keys, which is the SSE S3. So this was the first type. Alright, now let's go and test out on the second one. Let me go to the GCP logo. This is the second image. Alright, let me close the previous one, and likewise let me go and open the rest of them. Okay, so now here again, let me come down, and if I look at the server-side encryption settings, it is disabled. Let me go and enable it. But for this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use SSE KMS. And when I select the SSE KMS, I have 3 options here, which again, the first one is AWS managed keys, and your own AWS KMS key and your KMS ARN. So we know what an ARN is, right? So Amazon resource number. So that information can be fetched and inserted here to set the key on it. Alright, or we have the option to create the key also. Likewise, here also you have the option to create the key when you want to use the AWS KMS keys. But for now, I am not going to be doing that. Alright, I'll use the AWS managed keys only, and let me save the changes. Now, we have to watch closely here. Okay, let me go back to the image. And if you monitor carefully, you see here, you can see the key has been generated, the key has been assigned to this particular object under the SSE KMS. Let me go and open the previous one. Alright, so the previous one, meaning that AWS logo image object, it is also having the server-side encryption settings enabled, but you cannot see the keys here. So that is the difference between the SSE and S3, the SSE S3 and SSE KMS. Okay, this is one of the very important differences that you have to note. Then another difference is within that entire tree, the first object I changed, right? So now let me go and look into the second object. The second object also does not have the edit option here. It is not getting enabled, and this one is also not enabled. So only the first one, the first object within that tree will have the option to set the keys onto it. Whether it is SSE S3 or SSE KMS, you have the option only to set it on top of them. Alright, now what we want to do is, let's go and check out another option from the bucket level. Okay, let me go and click on the properties of the bucket, and I have the default encryption disabled here. Now when I'm going to set the encryption, enable the encryption at the bucket level, so I have an option to enable here, and it's asking me the default version, the default type of keys that you want to set for every single object that's going to be uploaded into the bucket, which means that any object I'm going to be uploading further into this particular object will have a SSE key automatically set on it. Okay, so I'm going to keep it as enabled. I'm going to save changes. So when I look at the changes, yes, it is enabled. Amazon S3 managed keys SSE S3 is now ready. And let me go back to the objects. Let me add a new object and see what's happening now. Okay, add files. I have a coffee cup here. I'm going to add that to it. Alright, and I should check on the properties. And if I check on the properties, it is still showing do not specify an encryption key. If your bucket policy requires encrypted uploads, you must specify an encryption key or your upload will fail. Let's see what is happening now. It said, it is saying the upload has succeeded on the image. Let us go back here. Let's check on this properties of this particular object. And you see that a default encryption key has been set automatically on the particular object. Why? Because the setting has propagated from the primary bucket, the bucket, the container, the bucket container which has this particular setting enabled. Because of that, the object which we just uploaded is also getting the Amazon S3 managed key. All right. Now coming to the third one, we have the other one which is SSE C or SSE by the customer. So SSE by the customer is it is completely managed using the CLI. So if you're going to be using a CLI based interaction with your S3, and if you're going to be using if you want to set the encryption keys, then you will be using the SSE C for the CLI. And the last of them, the client version, the client end encryption. So the client side encryption is going to be managed by the computer or the local machine from where you are going to upload that object. So this is my machine, right? So I need to have my own encryption methodology where I can encrypt and attach a key to that particular object before I can upload that particular object to the bucket. All right. So I hope you have a good understanding about how to set the encryption keys on a specific object and different versions also. Thank you very much for watching this session, and I'll see you in the next session.